My name is Rachel. I am 30 years old, and today should be the happiest day of my life. The scent of fresh paint and polished wood lingers in the air, mingling with the faint hum of the city outside the glass doors of my brand new salon. I've dreamed of this moment for over a decade, and yet as I stand in the center of the space with the chairs gleaming under bright lights, my hands are trembling. I keep replaying the voices of my family in my head, their doubts, their smirks, their warnings. For as long as I can remember, my passion has been treated like a joke. But let me back up. My grandmother was the first person to truly see me. When I was 7, she placed a doll with long golden hair in my arms. Practice, she whispered, her wrinkled hands guiding mine as I twisted the strands into a clumsy braid. Every hand movement is like weaving a story. Grandma had once been a hairdresser herself before life pulled her into the role of housewife. She used to show me black and white photos of women in elegant updos from the 1960s, her voice soft with longing. My parents never understood her influence on me. To them, hair was trivial, a hobby at best. But to me, those afternoons in Grandma's kitchen with sunlight spilling over her sewing machine and combs rattling on the table were magic. She told me any job that's honest and brings in money is real work. I clung to those words like scripture. By middle school, my clients were my friends before school dances. I begged them to let me experiment twists, braids, curls pinned with too many bobby pins. Some laughed, but most returned asking for something fancier the next time. Even Emily, my older sister, couldn't resist. She'd toss her glossy dark hair in front of me, half teasing, half serious. "Don't mess it up, Rachel. This guy's actually cute." She pretended she didn't care, but when I made her look like she'd stepped out of a magazine for prom night, she couldn't stop checking herself in mirrors. Then came graduation. Most of my friends were filling out college applications, and Emily had already secured her path into finance. At dinner one evening, I cleared my throat and said, "I'm not going to college. I want to be a professional hairdresser." The silence was suffocating. My mother's fork clattered onto her plate. My father frowned, as if I'd confessed to a crime. "Rachel, don't be ridiculous," Mom snapped. "That's not a career. It's playing with scissors." "Look at your sister," Dad added, gesturing proudly at Emily. "She's studying finance. A respectable profession, a stable future." "I don't want finance," I said, voice shaking but steady. "I want to do hair." The explosion that followed felt like the earth itself cracked beneath me. Mom slammed her palm on the table. "You're making the biggest mistake of your life. You'll end up broke, miserable, begging for scraps. Do you want that?" Emily's smirk cut through me sharper than their words. She said nothing, but her silence screamed, "I win again." I didn't care, or at least I pretended not to. I enrolled in professional courses, earned my license, and worked at a small salon. The pay was meager, the hours grueling, but every satisfied client gave me fuel. I saved obsessively, denying myself luxuries. No new clothes, no vacations, no nights out. My car wheezed like an asthmatic dog, and my apartment was the size of a closet, but I tucked away every dollar. Sometimes late at night, when exhaustion crushed me, I'd question everything. I'd hear Mom's voice doomed to fail, and for a terrifying second, I'd believe her. But then I'd remember Grandma's hands guiding mine, her voice. Any honest job that brings in money is real work, and I'd keep going. 5 years in, I expanded my skills learning makeup artistry. Bridal work became my specialty. On weekends, I'd step into buzzing houses where brides trembled in silk robes, their mothers fluttering nervously. I'd pin curls, sweep eyeliner, and transform nerves into radiant confidence. Those days paid more than my parents earned in a month. And yet when I told them, their response was the same shrug, the same dismissive glance. Then 3 years ago, fate handed me a lifeline, an inheritance of $50,000 from a distant relative. My coworkers joked about fancy cars and beach vacations. I smiled, but inside I was already building walls of my dream salon. When I announced my plan, my parents nearly lost their minds. "Commercial property." Dad scoffed. "You should buy a house instead." "You'll sink every cent and come crawling back," Emily added, with the cool certainty of a banker who thought she understood risk better than me. But I'd already signed the papers. I knew failure was possible, but regret was unbearable. Which brings me back to today, the grand opening. The mirrors gleam, the stations stand ready. The sign outside glitters under sunlight, Rachel's Artistry. The name makes me smile. It sounds like Grandma whispering encouragement. My friends are on their way, some former clients too. Even my old boss promised to stop by. Still, my stomach knots, because the one group of people who should be here, the ones whose approval I've secretly craved my entire life, remain silent. My parents, Emily. I invited them weeks ago. They promised to try, but promises in my family are as thin as smoke. I run a hand over the sleek counter, inhaling the faint chemical scent of new leather. My reflection in the mirror looks confident, but my pulse betrays me. Today is supposed to be the proof, the evidence that I wasn't wrong all these years. Yet a whisper lingers in the back of my mind, cold and sharp. What if they were right? A gust of wind rattles the glass doors, startling me. I laugh nervously, shaking it off. No, not today. Today is mine. Even if I stand alone, even if the people I love most choose not to stand beside me, I will not crumble. Still, somewhere deep in my chest, a darker thought stirs. One day they'll regret underestimating me. One day the silence of their absence will echo louder than their criticism ever did. And that day may come sooner than they think. The morning light poured through the wide glass windows of my salon, splashing across polished tiles and mirrored walls. I had decorated every corner with care fresh flowers. Near the entrance, ribbons, tied neatly around sample products, soft music humming from hidden speakers. It smelled faintly of lavender spray mixed with the chemical tang of hair products. By noon, the place buzzed with energy. Friends drifted in, clients from my old salon hugged me tightly, and colleagues from past years marveled at how I'd transformed the empty commercial shell into a chic modern space. "Rachel, this is incredible," one of my former coworkers whispered as she examined the styling stations. 3 chairs, shampoo area, makeup corner girl. This looks like something out of a magazine. I smiled, a flush of pride rising in my chest. I had envisioned this moment for years, every late night when I came home aching, every time I counted the bills and whispered to myself that it was worth it. And here I was. Cameras flashed. Guests sipped sparkling juice from plastic flutes. Someone tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Speech, you need to give a speech." I laughed nervously, but agreed. Standing in front of the crowd, I clasped my hands together. Thank you everyone for coming today. This salon is more than just a business to me. It's a dream I've carried since I was a little girl watching my grandmother braid hair in our kitchen. She didn't get to own a salon of her own, but today I feel like I'm honoring her dream as well as mine. I couldn't have done this without years of hard work and without clients like you who trusted me to make you look beautiful. So, welcome to Rachel's Artistry. Applause rippled through the room, warm and genuine. My throat tightened, and for a moment the absence of my family didn't sting so badly. But then the applause faded, and silence pressed against me like a weight. I scanned the room. No familiar faces. No mother clutching her purse. No father adjusting his tie. No Emily tossing her hair with a smug smile. They're probably running late, I told myself, forcing the words into shape. I checked my phone. No messages. Every half hour I peeked again, expecting to see we're on our way or traffic's bad. Nothing. By 3 o'clock, the crowd had thinned. By 5, the last guest left with a cheerful wave. The salon, once filled with chatter and footsteps, now echoed with the lonely squeak of my mop against the floor. The balloons drooped slightly. The scent of cake still hung in the air. But celebration had soured into emptiness. I slumped into one of the styling chairs, staring at my reflection. My makeup had smudged slightly at the corners of my eyes from hugging too many people. But it wasn't exhaustion that blurred my vision. It was tears threatening to spill. With trembling fingers, I unlocked my phone and opened social media. The first thing that popped up was Emily's face. Her smile beamed in a series of photos, champagne glass in hand, surrounded by coworkers and friends, streamers hanging behind her. The caption, "Bon voyage, party. Vacation starts tomorrow. Let's celebrate tonight." My chest tightened. She had thrown her party today. Of all days, she chose this day. I swiped through picture after picture, my pulse hammering. And then I saw them, my parents. My mother perched proudly beside Emily, her arm linked with my sister's. My father, glass raised, laughing at some joke. They looked radiant, joyful, exactly how I had wanted them to look here in my salon on the day I finally proved them wrong. It felt like someone punched me in the stomach. For a few minutes, I couldn't move. I just sat there staring at the screen, the muffled hum of the refrigerator, the only sound. Finally, I pressed the call button. My mother answered after 2 rings. "Mom, where are you?" My voice cracked. "Why didn't you come?" "I waited all day." A pause. Then her voice calm, almost bored. Rachel, honey, we've told you before. This hairdressing idea of yours, it's doomed. You'll end up buried in debt and poverty. It's not respectable work. We chose to support Emily today because she's actually successful. You should understand that. The words sliced through me sharper than scissors. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Don't be upset, she continued. You'll thank us someday when you realize we were right. I hung up before I could hear more. My hand shook so badly I nearly dropped the phone. The silence of the salon pressed in on me heavier than ever. My chest heaved, tears spilling down my cheeks. I cried until my throat burned, until the sound of my sobs bounced back at me from the mirrored walls as if mocking me. And then through the haze, I remembered Grandma's voice. Any honest job that brings in money is real work. I wiped my face with the back of my hand, smearing mascara across my cheekbones. You would have been proud, Grandma, I whispered to the empty salon. You would have understood. I stood slowly gazing around at the gleaming counters, the carefully chosen lights, the framed certificates on the wall. This was my dream, tangible and alive, and I had built it with my own 2 hands. My family didn't get to take this away from me, not their absence, not their insults, not their cold preference for Emily. My voice trembled, but grew steadier as I spoke aloud. If they don't want to stand by me, then I'll stand alone. I don't need their approval anymore. Yet even as I said it, deep inside, a darker ember smoldered. One day they would regret this. One day the people who had dismissed me would be forced to watch me rise higher than they ever imagined, and I would not forgive them easily. The morning after my grand opening felt strange. My eyes were swollen from crying, but as sunlight slipped between the blinds of my tiny apartment, I made a vow no more tears for people who had chosen not to believe in me. I showered, dressed in black slacks and a crisp blouse, and walked into my salon with a renewed sense of determination. If my parents and Emily wouldn't validate me, I would let my work, my clients, and my success speak louder than their disdain. And it worked. Within weeks, my appointment book filled. Old clients followed me eagerly, saying they'd missed my magic hands. New clients arrived through word of mouth, some curious about the stylish new salon in town. Social media became my secret weapon. I uploaded before and after photos, bridal transformations, videos of intricate braids spinning like art under my fingers. My posts caught traction shares, multiplied comments flooded in. Golden hands. Only Rachel could pull this off, worth every penny. Reading those messages made my chest swell. Each one felt like a shield against my family's words. I poured myself into work. Morning to night, I styled, cut, colored, curled. Brides entrusted me with the most important day of their lives. Mothers of brides asked me to make them look 20 years younger and gasped when they saw their reflections. Each satisfied smile was proof that my passion wasn't just valid, it was thriving. Months passed, and one day a flyer landed in my inbox, State Hairdressing Championship. Applications open. I hesitated. Competitions terrified me, standing under bright lights judged by strangers. But another voice pushed back my mother's cold and dismissive, "You'll end up buried in debt and poverty." I signed up. For weeks I practiced. Late nights at the salon became my training ground. I built an elaborate design, cascading curls interwoven with tiny braids, pinned into a crown, laced with fresh flowers. My model was patient as I rehearsed again and again until my fingers ached. The day of the competition, I walked onto the stage with trembling hands, but a fiery heart. Under the glare of spotlights, I lost myself in the rhythm of weaving, curling, pinning. When the announcer called my name as first place winner, my knees nearly buckled. They handed me a trophy that glittered like fire in the light. The applause roared around me, and for a split second, I imagined my parents in the crowd, finally proud. But when I looked closer, I saw only strangers and colleagues clapping. Still, victory was mine. The prize money wasn't as important as the recognition. Photos of my winning style went viral. Local beauty bloggers reached out. A regional cable TV station asked to film a segment about me, my salon, my journey, my win. I stood in front of cameras, speaking nervously about my grandmother's influence, about chasing passion despite doubt. The next day, customers swarmed my salon phones, ringing off the hook. Business exploded. I had to hire an assistant just to manage appointments. I finally allowed myself to buy new furniture for my apartment and replace my ancient car. But I never forgot the lean years, and I never let success make me reckless. Then one evening, my phone buzzed. Aunt Linda. "Rachel, sweetheart, are you free next Saturday?" "Yes, Aunt Linda. What's up?" My anniversary party. It's a big one, 30 years. I'd love for you to do my hair and makeup. Everyone will be there. Your parents, Emily, too. My stomach tightened, but I forced a smile into my voice. Of course, Aunt Linda. I'd be honored. The day of the party, I arrived early at her home. Aunt Linda's laughter echoed as she ushered me in. Work your magic, she said. I did. I swept her hair into a soft, updo curls, framing her face, makeup highlighting her eyes. When she looked in the mirror, she gasped. Rachel, I look 20 years younger. At the party venue, glittering lights reflected off chandeliers, and chatter filled the hall. I spotted my parents instantly. My father in a crisp suit, my mother in a navy dress, Emily dazzling in a red cocktail gown. Their eyes met mine. They nodded stiffly. No hugs, no smiles, just acknowledgement. I focused on Aunt Linda, who floated through the crowd like royalty. Compliments poured in. Linda, you look stunning. Who did your hair? Who's your makeup artist? Each time Aunt Linda's eyes sparkled as she pointed at me. My niece Rachel. She owns her own salon now. Talented beyond words. Women pressed business cards into my hands, scribbled down my salon's address. Can you fit me in next week? One asked eagerly. Another whispered, my daughter's wedding is coming up. We need someone like you. I handed out cards, my confidence rising with each exchange. But from across the room, I could feel the weight of my family's stares. My parents' expressions were unreadable, but Emily's jaw tightened, her smile brittle. At one point, a wealthy-looking woman in her 50s approached me. My daughter's getting married in 3 months. We've been searching for the right stylist. Are you available? I nearly laughed at the timing. I'd love to discuss it, I said, slipping her my card. By the end of the night, I had 10 new potential clients lined up. My heart thrummed with exhilaration. As I packed up my tools, I caught sight of my parents again. My father whispered something to my mother, who nodded slowly, eyes lingering on me, with a flicker of something I couldn't quite place. Was it pride, surprise, or regret? It didn't matter. Tonight wasn't about them. Tonight was about me, my craft, and the undeniable truth I had succeeded in the very thing they said would ruin me. But somewhere deep inside, a question stirred. If they finally came to me offering pride or apologies, would I accept? Or was the wound too deep to ever truly heal? 2 weeks after Aunt Linda's party, the bell above my salon door chimed. I glanced up from my client's hair, expecting another walk-in, maybe someone curious after seeing me on TV. Instead, my breath caught. My mother and Emily stood in the waiting area. For a split second, I thought I'd imagined them. Mom's eyes darted around, taking in every detail, the gleaming mirrors, the rows of hair products, the receptionist scheduling appointments at the desk. Emily, arms crossed, lingered near the wall where my awards were displayed. I swallowed, kept my voice even. Mom, Emily, what are you doing here? We just wanted to see the place, Mom said. Her tone lacked its usual edge, almost hesitant, as though she were stepping onto foreign soil. I gestured toward the waiting chairs. Feel free to look around. They moved slowly through the salon. Mom ran her hand along one of the leather styling chairs, her brows lifting. This is impressive. Emily tilted her head toward the framed certificates. You won all of these. Yes. I clipped another section of my client's hair, the rhythm of my scissors steady. Several competitions over the past few years. For once, Emily had no snide remark. She simply stared at the plaques, her lips pressed tight. When I finished with my client and walked her to the front desk, Emily cleared her throat. So, do you think you could fit me in for a haircut today? I pulled out my appointment book, flipping through the packed pages. I'm booked solid for the next 3 weeks. You can check with my receptionist for the earliest slot. The surprise on their faces was almost comical. Emily blinked. 3 weeks? That's right, I smiled politely. Business is good. They left soon after, the faint scent of my mother's perfume lingering in the air long after the door shut behind them. I stood still, heart pounding. Part of me wanted to laugh at their shock. Part of me wanted to cry. Why did it take all this awards trophies, a buzzing salon for them to even set foot inside? Still, something in their eyes that day haunted me. Not pride, not yet, but something softer than disdain. Over the following weeks, subtle shifts began. My parents started calling not to lecture, but to ask how I was doing. Invitations to family dinners reappeared after years of silence. I was wary, but curiosity pulled me to a few gatherings. The conversations were stiff at first, my father's attempts at small talk, clumsy, my mother offering me leftovers like peace offerings. And then came my father's birthday party. I debated going. The thought of standing in their house surrounded by relatives who had witnessed years of their favoritism toward Emily made my stomach twist. But some stubborn part of me wanted to see what had changed. So I went. The house was filled with laughter, clinking glasses, familiar faces from childhood, who now eyed me with curiosity. I stayed near the edge of the room, sipping a drink, when I noticed my father moving from group to group, phone in hand. At first, I assumed he was sharing vacation photos. But then I heard my name. "This is my daughter Rachel," he was saying, showing off a video clip. "She won first place at the state hairdressing championship. Look at that hairstyle. Magnificent, isn't it? She owns her own salon now. Very successful business." I froze. The same man who once told me hairdressing wasn't a real career, who said I'd end up broke, was now bragging about me as if he had always believed. One of his friends approached me later, shaking my hand. "Your father can't stop talking about you. Showed us that TV interview you did. Very impressive." I forced a smile. "Thank you." Inside, my emotions twisted into knots. Vindication. Yes. Satisfaction, absolutely. But beneath it all, a deep ache pulsed. Why did it take public proof, trophies, news segments for him to acknowledge me? Why wasn't my passion enough before success dressed it in gold? Later that evening, Dad pulled me aside onto the porch, away from the chatter. The night air was cool, the hum of crickets filling the silence between us. He cleared his throat, adjusting his tie unnecessarily. "Rachel," he began, voice low, "I wanted to say I was wrong. About your career. I didn't understand what you were building, but I see it now. I'm proud of you." The words hung between us, fragile and heavy. It wasn't a full apology, not for the years of ridicule, not for the tears on my salon's opening day, but it was something. And in his eyes, I saw sincerity, awkward but real. "Thanks, Dad," I said quietly. My chest ached, a mixture of relief and sorrow. That night, driving home, I stared at the glowing city lights through my windshield. A strange thought flickered. Was this pride truly for me, or for the reflection of success they could now parade to others? And if it was the latter, could I ever trust it? The questions gnawed at me, even as a small ember of hope burned brighter than it had in years. Maybe, just maybe, my family and I were on the path toward something resembling respect. But deep down, I also knew forgiveness is never simple. Recognition after years of dismissal leaves scars that no trophy can erase. The call came on an ordinary Tuesday morning while I was mixing hair dye for a client. My phone buzzed with Emily's name. For a moment, I considered letting it ring out. We weren't in the habit of casual sisterly chats, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hey, Emily," I said, trying to sound neutral. Her voice was surprisingly soft. "Rachel, I need a favor." I braced myself. "What kind of favor?" "You know I'm getting married in a couple of months." "Yes," I said, my tone even. I'd heard the news through relatives, not from her. "Well, I want you to do my hair and makeup. And for all the bridesmaids, too." The bowl of dye nearly slipped from my hands. For a second, I thought I'd misheard. Emily, the sister who skipped my salon opening, who mocked my career, who smirked at my struggles, was asking me to be in charge of her most important day. "Seriously?" I asked. "Seriously. I've seen your bridal work online. It's amazing. I can't imagine trusting anyone else." A part of me wanted to hang up, to tell her to book an appointment like any other client, to remind her of all the years she dismissed me. But another part, quieter yet stronger, whispered of something I hadn't felt in years, the possibility of being sisters again. "All right," I said at last. "I'll do it." I heard her sigh with relief. "Thanks, Rachel. Really." Over the next few weeks, Emily and I met several times to plan her look. Sitting across from her at my salon's consultation desk felt surreal. She flipped through my portfolio, pointing out intricate braids, romantic curls, soft updos. "I want something elegant but not stiff," she said one afternoon, chewing her lip. "Romantic but modern." Her words tumbled with excitement, and for the first time in years, her tone wasn't laced with superiority. She looked like a bride-to-be, nervous, hopeful, vulnerable. As I sectioned her hair for a trial style, she studied me in the mirror. "How did you get so good at this?" "Practice," I said, twisting strands into delicate loops. "And because I love it." When you love something, you always find ways to get better. She was quiet for a moment, then murmured, "I wish I loved my job the way you love yours." I paused, comb midair. Emily admitting dissatisfaction, that was new. "You don't like working at the bank?" I asked carefully. "It's fine. It pays well. But it's not a passion. It's just a job. Something safe." She exhaled sharply. Mom and Dad always made it sound like stability was everything, and I wanted to make them proud. But sometimes I wonder what I gave up to do that. Her words sank into me like stones in water. For years, she had been the shining example, the sister who did everything right. And yet here she was, confessing envy of me, the one she mocked. I tied off the final braid, pinning it into a soft crown. "Take a look," I said, swiveling the chair. Her eyes widened. "Rachel, it's beautiful." She touched the style gently, almost reverently. "You make it look effortless." Something flickered in her gaze, then something more than admiration, a fragile thread of respect. Our planning sessions continued. Some were lighthearted, us laughing over veil lengths and lipstick shades. Others dipped into heavier territory. One evening, as she tried on different hair pieces, she sighed. "Do you ever think Mom and Dad will really get it? What you do? Or will they just see the trophies and business, not the art?" I froze, surprised she'd voiced what had haunted me for years. "I don't know. Maybe it doesn't matter anymore. I know what I'm worth, even if they don't." Emily nodded slowly. "I envy that too, knowing who you are." Her honesty unsettled me. For so long, she had been the untouchable sister, the favored one. To see her cracks exposed felt both vindicating and oddly sad. But even as we edged toward closeness, tension lingered. Sometimes her tone slipped back into old patterns. "Are you sure that's trendy enough? Or maybe you should use better products." Old reflexes, old superiority. Each time I bit my tongue, choosing patience over confrontation. Still at night, lying in bed, I wondered, was this newfound bond real? Or was she using me for convenience, discarding her pride only because she needed me? One afternoon, while adjusting a bridal veil on her, she caught my eyes in the mirror. "You're not going to let me down, are you?" she asked, half joking, half serious. The words hit me harder than intended. For a split second, I imagined myself walking away, leaving her scrambling on her wedding day, tasting the bitterness of all the times she left me behind. But I shook the thought off. "I've been making you look good since high school, remember? Have a little faith." She smiled, and for once it didn't feel forced. In the quiet moments after she left, I often sat in my salon alone, staring at my grandmother's photo on the office wall. "Would you forgive them, Grandma?" I whispered one evening. "After everything." After leaving me alone on opening day. The picture, of course, didn't answer, but her words echoed in my memory. Any honest job that brings in money is real work. As Emily's wedding approached, I felt caught between two currents, the possibility of healing and the memory of betrayal. The closer we grew, the more I feared the day might reveal something deeper, something neither of us was ready to face. And in the pit of my stomach, a darker thought stirred. What if Emily's marriage, polished and perfect on the outside, carried cracks? No hairstyle could cover. The phone call came late one evening as I was closing up shop. The last client had left, the mirrors gleamed under dimmed lights, and I was sweeping stray strands of hair into a pan when my cell buzzed. "Hello," I answered, tucking the phone between my ear and shoulder. "Rachel, it's Linda." My heart skipped. Linda, my old boss. The woman who gave me my first real job in a salon, who had watched me struggle through awkward beginnings, who'd teased me gently about my braid obsession. "I'm retiring," she said without preamble, "and I want you to have the salon." The broom nearly clattered to the floor. "You want to sell me your salon? You were always one of my best stylists. And now look at you, you're running your own place, winning competitions, getting media coverage. You've proven you can do it. I'd rather pass my salon to someone I trust than some stranger." I pressed a hand to my chest. My salon was already thriving, but the thought of managing 2 locations made my stomach twist. Excitement tangled with fear. "Linda, that's huge. I don't know if I'm ready." "You'll never feel ready," she chuckled. "Think about it. You've built something remarkable. Why stop now?" That night, I sat in my office long after dark, the framed photo of Grandma staring down at me. 2 salons. Twice the responsibility, twice the risk. Could I handle it? I ran numbers for days. Projected costs, staffing needs, renovation budgets. I spoke with an advisor who told me the numbers made sense. Linda's salon had a loyal client base and a solid reputation. Together with mine, it could become something extraordinary. Still, fear gnawed at me. What if expansion toppled everything I'd built? What if I failed and proved my parents right after all? When the anxiety threatened to consume me, I picked up the phone and dialed my mother. She answered quickly. "Rachel, everything all right?" I hesitated. Sharing big news with her used to invite nothing but criticism, but something in her tone was different lately, softer, cautious. "Linda offered to sell me her salon," I said. "She's retiring." Silence stretched on the line. Then Mom whispered, "That's wonderful. I blinked, stunned. You think so? Of course. You've already proven you can run one salon. If anyone can handle two, it's you. Her words nearly undid me. A year ago, she'd called my dream doomed. Now she was telling me I could do anything. My throat tightened. Thanks, Mom. That means a lot. The deal took 2 months to finalize. I hired a manager to oversee Linda's old salon, brought in 2 more stylists and a makeup artist, and spent long nights juggling schedules, finances, and supply orders. It was exhausting, terrifying, and exhilarating. The grand reopening arrived quicker than I expected. I stood in front of the renovated salon, the sign now reading Rachel's Artistry Second Location. The ribbon fluttered in the breeze as I gripped the scissors. To my surprise, my parents stood in the front row. Dad wore a proud smile. Mom clutched her purse tightly, and even Emily had shown up, her fiancé's arm slung around her shoulders. When I cut the ribbon, applause erupted. My staff cheered. Clients snapped photos, and my parents, they clapped too. Not politely, not out of obligation, genuinely. Inside, Mom touched the reception desk, admiring the new space. Rachel, it's beautiful, truly. Dad clasped my shoulder. 2 salons at 30 years old. That's remarkable. I underestimated you. I met his eyes. For once, there was no smugness, no lingering doubt, just pride. The words warmed me, but part of me couldn't forget how long it had taken for them to arrive. Over the following weeks, business boomed. Between both salons, my calendar overflowed. Clients poured in, drawn by word of mouth and media buzz. I hired more assistants, trained younger stylists, and learned to delegate something that didn't come easily to me. Yet even as I expanded, a question lingered. Was my family's support genuine or tied to my success? Would they still stand by me if the salon struggled? One evening, after another long day, I drove to my parents' house for dinner. Emily and her fiancé were already there, laughter spilling from the kitchen. Mom greeted me with a smile and pressed a plate into my hands. As we ate, Dad raised his glass. To Rachel, he said, surprising everyone. To her courage, her skill, and her success. We're proud of you. The table echoed with agreement. Emily smiled, though I caught the faint flicker of something else in her eyes, envy perhaps, or unease. I forced a smile, raising my glass in return. But as I sipped, I felt the sting of a hidden truth. Pride, given so late after years of scorn, is never simple. Gratitude mixes with bitterness. Forgiveness knots with suspicion. That night back at my apartment, I sat alone in the quiet. The city lights flickered through my window. My phone buzzed with new bookings, new opportunities. 2 salons, a thriving business, parents who finally said the words I'd longed to hear. And yet deep inside, a scar remained. I couldn't shake the memory of standing alone in my salon on opening day, mascara streaking my cheeks, phone pressed to my ear as my mother told me I was doomed. Success had brought me recognition, but it hadn't erased the wound. It never could. I turned to Grandma's photo on my desk, whispering I did it. But why does victory feel so heavy? Her eyes in the photograph seemed to glimmer with silent wisdom. Perhaps because true validation can't come from those who once denied you, it must come from within. The morning of Emily's wedding dawned bright and warm, the kind of day brides dream of. I arrived at the venue early, hauling cases of brushes, palettes, curling irons, and sprays. My assistant trailed behind me, balancing boxes of hairpieces and extension kits. Inside the bridal suite, Emily sat in a silk robe, her hands fidgeting in her lap. Bridesmaids clustered around, sipping coffee, whispering nervously. The air was charged with excitement, perfume, and faint tension. "Thank God you're here," Emily breathed when I walked in. "I've barely slept." I smiled, setting up my station. "Relax. You're in good hands." For the next few hours, I moved like a conductor orchestrating a symphony. Brushes swept across eyelids, irons curled and pinned, blush bloomed on cheeks. One by one, the bridesmaids transformed from anxious women into radiant visions. Laughter replaced jitters. Compliments bounced around the room. Finally, it was Emily's turn. She sat before me, her reflection pale eyes wide. I parted her hair carefully, section by section, weaving soft curls into an elegant updo. Delicate braids framed her face, pinned with tiny pearl clips. As I worked, she whispered, "Rachel, I'm sorry." The word startled me more than the clatter of dropped bobby pins. Sorry for what? For not being there for you, for mocking you, for everything. I should have supported you. I see that now. I paused, comb poised midair, heart pounding. My sister, the golden child, the one who basked in our parents' approval, was apologizing. "Emily," my voice trembled. It hurt, more than you know. I know, she admitted. Her eyes brimmed with tears. And I regret it. You didn't just build a business. You built a life out of passion. I admire you for that. I want to be proud of my sister, not jealous of her. For a moment, silence stretched between us, heavy and fragile. Then I nodded, swallowing hard. We can start over. She smiled through tears. I'd like that. When I finished, I turned her chair toward the mirror. She gasped, covering her mouth. Rachel, I look like a princess. You look like yourself, I corrected softly. Just radiant. The ceremony was breathtaking. Emily walked down the aisle, shimmering with confidence, her hair glinting in the sunlight veil trailing like silk clouds. Guests murmured admiration. She looked stunning, I overheard. Who did her hair? Each time someone pointed toward me. Pride swelled in my chest, not just professional pride, but something deeper, the knowledge that I had given my sister the confidence to shine on her most important day. At the reception, as music pulsed and guests toasted, my mother pulled me aside. Her eyes glistened as she squeezed my hands. You made your sister so happy today, she whispered. I'm proud of both my daughters. Both. The word echoed inside me, filling a void I'd carried for decades. My throat tightened, tears blurring the chandeliers above. For so long, I had been the invisible one, the disappointment. Now finally she said it. Thanks, Mom, I murmured, my voice breaking. The evening blurred into laughter, dancing, and endless congratulations. Guests handed me cards, asked for my Salon's number, praised my work. Business opportunities bloomed before my eyes, but for once that wasn't my focus. Watching Emily twirl in her gown, her smile unguarded, I felt something fragile mend between us. We weren't perfect sisters, maybe never would be, but we had found common ground, a respect forged in honesty and perhaps love. The months after the wedding were a whirlwind. Both salons thrived, fueled by the flood of new clients who had seen my work. Magazines called me a rising entrepreneur. My social media following soared past 50,000. I began teaching workshops, mentoring young stylists who reminded me of myself, hungry, determined, often doubted. One evening, I returned to my office after a long day. On the wall hung Grandma's photo, young smiling scissors in hand, at a 1960s salon. I sat heavily in my chair, staring at her face. I did it, Grandma, I whispered, for both of us. The quiet room seemed to hum with her presence. I imagined her nodding proud, her eyes crinkling with joy. My phone buzzed with a message from Emily. Thank you again for making me beautiful on my wedding day. You really are the best. Love you, sis. I smiled, typing back, love you too. Later that night, I pulled out my sketchbook. Even after endless hours of work, I couldn't stop designing new hairstyles. Ideas poured out of me. Braids woven like crowns, curls cascading like waterfalls, modern cuts, sharp as glass. I realized then, passion doesn't fade with success. It grows, demands, more fuels the fire. My salons, my recognition, my family's overdue pride, none of it changed the core truth. I love this work. It was mine. And as long as I kept creating beauty with my hands, I would never again need anyone's permission to exist, to succeed, to shine.